Breaking down the Hogs here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate y'all stopping by. And of course, we're going to go to our guy, Ty Hudson. You can catch him on Tusk Talk with Ty. It's right here on YouTube. Ty, what's going on?
Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Unfortunately, you didn't have a March Madness there in the great state of Arkansas.
Had to rub that in, did you?
I wasn't rubbing it in. I was sympathizing with you.
Brutal year. Brutal. And we kind of seems like from the get-go, we had a hunch that going into SEC play might be pretty brutal, and was. And obviously they couldn't really rally in February or March like they've done before in the regular season or in the SEC tournament, and they were knocked out of the SEC tournament earlier than I think some fans thought they might actually go on this little win streak, maybe all the way to the SEC title game. But most people knew that probably wasn't going to happen. So they missed out on all the fun that the SEC is currently having in March Madness in the tournament. By the way, total sarcasm for anyone not paying attention. The SEC has been terrible in the NCAA tournament.
Tennessee's hanging around.
Yeah, Tennessee's, it's not surprising. They're still there. Yeah. But overall, the SEC has been abysmal in the tournament.
So, Ty, we know you're excited to head back to spring practice, get on the field, check out the guys in person. And based on what you're telling me going into this conversation, you're going to see a whole lot of Taylen Green working with the ones. And I don't know how to interpret this exactly, because he was good enough to be the starter at a Boise State team that won the Mountain West Conference. The stats are not overwhelming, but again, he led them to a conference championship. He's mobile, and he presents that dynamic. But with Jacoby Criswell, knowing the offense as well as he should and being around campus, and terminology and everything should not be an issue there. That I don't know if that's a good thing in regards to saying, okay, Taylen Green must be that good, or really there's not a quarterback battle.
Maybe a little bit of both. It is new terminology, to be fair. It is Petrino's first year back. It's still wild to say out loud, by the way, as I think I mentioned last time I was on here. But it is new terminology, and Green was his guy. And I believe he recruited him when he was at Missouri State. I guess he just kind of fits the mold for what Petrino wants to do. He is, like you said, he's mobile. He can throw the ball. Pittman talked about his leadership being his greatest strength. It does seem like, the players do like being around him. And one of the things that you do, at least from what the university shows the public, via Twitter, their little videos that they upload. I think maybe Hogs Plus has done a little bit here and there. They show a lot of camaraderie between Green and the rest of his receivers and whatever, kind of clowning, having a good time. We didn't really see that from KJ. And to be fair, KJ was always kind of quiet and kept to himself. I hate how people weaponize that against KJ. Like, oh, well, that's why he was so terrible last year. Never mind, they had the worst offensive line, maybe even worse than the Chad Morris era. Never mind that. If you notice, nobody had success in that backfield, including the running backs or Jacoby Criswell at the end of the year. But that's the one thing that stands out that's different about Taylen. I don't know if they're able to work with these players a little bit more, it sounds like, in the offseason. And maybe there's something there, and Green and Pittman and Petrino just all are on the same page, and the rest of these guys are still trying to understand the verbiage and the vernacular of the offense. But right now, it's Green's. He's been with the ones from day one. I mean, he's been the guy. I've not seen anyone else take any reps with the ones. It's been him. And as far as I could tell, I haven't missed a day of practice yet in spring camp, I haven't seen anyone else take those reps. And then that is a little bit surprising, because I thought we would see a very in-depth battle. And in fact, not only does it appear that Jacoby Criswell or that Green is number one, it's almost like Criswell is now fighting for the number 2 spot along with Malachi Singleton, the redshirt freshman.
Taylen Green over the last 2 years has rushed for over 1,000 yards total in those 2 seasons with 19 rushing touchdowns. Now I'm going to bring to light statistically. Now we don't know what the situation was with the offensive line at Boise State from 2022 to 23, or if he had better wide receivers in 22 than in 23. But for a quarterback who was a freshman starting at Boise State, and then he goes to his redshirt sophomore season, it appears to be, he goes from 61% completion percentage to 57. He goes from 14 touchdowns and 6 picks to 11 TDs and 9 picks. That's not usually the type of progression that you see from freshman year to sophomore year for a quarterback who has started and played and thrown over 500 passes now, that those numbers took a bit of a hit last year. Again, not understanding the context. I watched Boise State play a little bit here and there, but it wasn't like I was dissecting their offensive line play or wide receiver play.
Yeah, I don't fully, to me, because it's a new situation at the University of Arkansas, I do look at those numbers, and those are concerning. I mean, like you said, almost 61.5% completion percentage in 22 drops all the way down to barely 57% with 3 more picks and I think, what'd you say, 2 or 3 less touchdowns thrown. But he does take the starting job back towards the end of the year. They had a weird 2 quarterback situation going on at Boise State. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I reached out to someone who is a Boise State. He's a diehard fan. He had I guess he works in the media. I don't know. Someone pointed me to him, and I reached out to him, and he never got back to me. But I would love to know exactly, more details than just what the media around it have been talking about. Maybe someone who's a diehard Boise State fan. Those do exist, by the way. I know there's going to be some hog fan like, what are you talking about? Those people exist. Of course they do. They've had a really good last couple of decades of football. Let's be fair. But he started off really well. In fact, I talked with Stephen Hamner, QB Spotlight, about his progression, and he said, he did kind of stand out to me after his redshirt freshman year as someone who was progressing to be a potential like all conference caliber quarterback who probably won't be at Boise State very long. And he said, I don't know really what happened in 2023, but something obviously negative happened and it affected what was going on. I know they had some coaching changes and some things going on there, but as far as his on play, what I've seen, what Stephen Hamner's seen, I don't want to speak on behalf of Stephen Hamner, so I won't do that. But from what I've seen, I don't know. There is a little bit of a regression there, and obviously, like you said, there's probably more that meets the eye with that whole thing. But I hope with this day and age, with the transfer portal, and we know now it's like Control Alt Delete now. Like you could just wipe away. When you go from one team to another, that's essentially what you're doing, and you could do that with your roster. Control Alt Delete. We're going to reset the whole thing. We've seen how that's affected basketball and even baseball, and of course football. But that's what's interesting about this scenario is that, yeah, they don't have Rocket Sanders. Obviously, KJ's moved on. But really, everyone else is back outside of the offensive line. I'm talking about his weapons, right? You've got most everyone back. Now, the running back did transfer. The running back, A.J. Green, did transfer. But you've got all the other running backs back. I mean, hell, even Johnson's back. DeBinion's back. They've got, and they do have some new faces. Braylon Russell's going to be back there. Jackson from Utah, running back. You and I talked about him last time I was on the show. So they do have new faces, but then you look at the wideouts, like they're all back. The tight ends, they're all back so far. Now we'll see what happens after spring camp. So really it's for Green, it's like Control Alt Delete. He's now on this roster that's completely different, but with a lot of the same faces back from a year ago. But then you have, Petrino, like we mentioned a minute ago, a whole new offense. So it's a lot of different moving parts happening. And it's that way everywhere. I get it. But for Arkansas fans, it's a lot of different, moving parts. When you talk about no Rocket, no KJ, no AJ Green, but again, you're going to have some of these other guys back that are weapons, your receivers and running backs. And then you've got this whole new offensive line. A lot of changes and yet a lot of the things, some of the things remain the same, especially at wideout. From what I could tell, I mean, Taylen Green looks comfortable. I don't know that there's been a practice where I can remember last year watching Jacoby Criswell and Malachi. They looked like deer in headlights, and I'm talking early on spring camp. It took them, I don't know, to like practice 8 or 9 to where you really start to see them get comfortable. Now that's the first ever spring camp I've ever been to, at least since I've been doing this. And so maybe that's new. Old news. That's something that happens all the time when you got these new faces, especially a freshman and a transfer. But it was, I could tell they looked like me really when I walked into spring camp, like they kind of looking around like this is different. I've never got that with Taylen Green. Taylen Green has looked comfortable since day one. And I'm not saying that means he's going to be dynamic. He's going to be an all conference quarterback. I'm not saying that, but I do think he's got a little bit of a head start. And that might be why the guy has been with the ones since day one. I think it probably has more to do with Petrino. I think Petrino, this is his guy, but I certainly believe that being comfortable allows you to do a lot more, with your skill set, right? I know as a content creator, the more comfortable I get, the better I feel like I am at my job and what I do. I'm sure you can relate to that. I think that's part of what's going on with Taylen. He's never looked like a deer in headlights. He's always looked pretty comfortable. And he, as far as I can tell, he's getting along with the staff. We know there's a lot more behind closed doors, but as far as I can tell, he's comfortable. He looks pretty fluid. Has he made mistakes? Yes. Has he made some outstanding plays? Yes. Too early to say one way or another, but I will say he's looked the part at the very least.
To his defense, statistically, he started the first 5 games. He was under 48% the first 2 games, so the percentage did go markedly up. He did throw 3 interceptions in the first 2 games, so he got better taking care of the football. But after starting those first 5 games, he obviously got benched because he was playing in all these games. After that, in the next 5 games, he's playing. He's throwing 6 or 8 passes, so he's coming in at some point in the game. But he's not starting. And then he starts at the end of the season. I don't know if that would have been Hank Bachmeier, I believe, was the other quarterback. Maybe not. So I don't know if he took the job back over. There was an injury, but then they win the Mountain West Conference. He plays the championship game, and he wins a bowl game. So there you go.
Yeah. And he won it, and he was the MVP of the game.
The conference championship game.
The conference championship game.
Yeah, actually, I screwed up on the bowl game. I was looking at the last game here against UNLV. I was figuring they would have the last game as the bowl game. He must have hit the transfer portal, did not play the bowl game.
Yeah, he didn't
They
play
lost
the bowl
that to UCLA.
Yeah, but he played against UNLV and looked the part. Now, to be fair, UNLV's defense was not very good, and I know that's the thing that people pointed out to me when I mentioned, look how great Taylen Green performed. Someone will fire back with, okay, yeah, it was Barry Odom, but it was a typical Barry Odom defense. It wasn't very good. So I don't know. I mean, I will say I've watched those highlights, and you and I know how you feel about highlights. You know how I feel about highlights. Everyone looks great in highlights, but he certainly, I mean, he looked the part, man. I mean, he looked more than capable, and I know that had to stand out to Petrino as a guy who recruited him, and now he's seeing it happen. His third year, technically his redshirt sophomore year, but his third year in college football, and to see that clearly, that's someone who Petrino believes can be the guy. Now we'll see it by the end of spring camp if Criswell or Malachi Singleton, if they haven't pushed the issue, maybe they get some reps with the ones. We'll see how that unfolds. But yeah, again, so far it's Green's job to lose as far as I'm concerned, or at least as far as I can see, I should say.
All right, everyone. Tusk Talk with Ty. It's right here on YouTube. So you're just a click away. Join Ty. He's going to be at all the spring practices. Good stuff to catch up with Ty. Ty, as always, you're our go-to guy when it comes to the Hogs. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.